What's going to be the future with Iran now that the tensions seem to have dissipated a bit between Israel and Iran? The United States made its strike, it stepped out of the situation. What comes next? Take a look at this clip over here from Andrew Bustamante, who's a former CIA agent, and he gives his perspective on how he sees things developing. So we'll watch this clip together and then talk about it. But first, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Check this out.
Israel made a good decision, played it smart, because they attacked the one country that's been going at them through these proxies, right?
Right.
And also that's hated by all its neighbors, basically.
Correct, because everybody wants to see Iran weakened. Saudi Arabia wants to see Iran weakened. Bahrain wants to see Iran weakened. UAE wants to see Iran weakened. Israel wants to see Iran weakened. All of NATO wants to see Iran weakened. The United States wants to see Iran weakened. So by attacking Iran, they had the implicit support of pretty much every wealthy country in the world. And every country in the world understood they didn't have to say shit. They didn't have to acknowledge or condone it. And even if they did condone it, they could condone it in such a way that wasn't actually going to limit Israel's efforts to reduce that country's capability.
And why did Israel do this?
I mean, my estimation is that Netanyahu has realized he is in a position to have kind of a once-in-a-generation tactical opportunity to take an existential threat to Israel and bring it to its knees. He was able to, when Hamas attacked on October 7th, he had an opportunity to bring down Hamas in a big way, and it worked. They've done a ton of damage outside of their target, but they have damaged their target significantly, especially Hamas leadership. So now Hamas basically can't mount an effective campaign anymore. They might still exist, but their capability for conflict has been reduced. And then they moved on to Hezbollah, and they did the same thing in Hezbollah. And then they saw the fall of Syria, and then they were able to take some opportunity to grow in Syria. So, I mean, opportunity is presenting itself as conflict expands. If you're in Netanyahu's shoes, and you have the slightest modicum of hope to kind of secure the future of your country, for your children, for your wife, for any reason, you're going to see this as, here's an opportunity, I got to take it. Here's an opportunity, I got to take it. Iran was just the next logical opportunity to be able to go in there and even just damage their Iranian capability to enrich uranium. That's a significant win. And let's also not forget, when all of the conflict ends, Netanyahu's going to have a day in Israel, because that's when he has to face the criminal charges that have been looming over him for the last 7 years. And it's going to be much nicer to sit on that stand when everybody who's watching you knows that you've dismantled Hamas, dismantled Hezbollah, brought back security to Israel, and degraded the uranium enrichment capability of Iran. It's going to feel much better to get judgment on that day when justice is served, knowing that the people are probably going to go lenient on you.
So how serious are these charges? Because this is something that I've been told again and again. What is Netanyahu looking at in terms of these legal cases?
I mean, that's a place where I don't have a deep knowledge for sure, because I don't understand Israeli law. I don't know how, because Israel isn't a country that separates church and state. So very similar to Iran that doesn't separate church and state. It's very unpredictable. On paper, there's corruption charges. On paper, there's charges of nepotism. There's charges of, I think it's embezzlement. So there's some criminal activity that's associated with Netanyahu, but how the criminal courts or how the court system is going to handle that, I don't know. Very similar to what Donald Trump is facing in the United States. Maybe, I mean, he's tried and convicted in a state, but not at a federal level. And that conviction at a state level didn't prevent him from becoming president. So it's the justice system as a separate arm of government is outside of my knowledge base.
Completely fair. You've said something very interesting where you say Israel has been tactically sound but strategically flawed in the way that it's pursued these wars. What do you mean by that, Andrew?
I would argue that what happened in Israel, or what happened in Iran, was the right thing at the wrong time. The opportunity to degrade their enrichment facility was one opportunity, but that's not going to destroy the nuclear capability, as we've talked about. The enriched uranium still exists. The weaponization of what...
Wait, you seem very certain about this, Andrew.
Because we've been talking about it for years. For years, there have been reports that Fordo and Natanz, these sites that enrich the uranium do not hold the uranium. The uranium is moved to different, more secure bunkers.
I'm just trying to get this logically, but if Mossad knows where all this shit is, because they must do, right? But they must do.
So
I mean, they're taking people out in the palace, right? They must know.
So here's where it gets uncomfortable.
Okay.
Let's assume that they do know, because I believe it's a safe assumption that they know that the target package they gave the United States wasn't good enough. They know it. Now that's fucking uncomfortable, right? Mm-hmm. So they essentially would have baited the United States to come in and get a political win that has no really military strategic value. For what purpose? Why would they do that? If not just to get the United States involved in a conflict that otherwise the United States wouldn't have been involved in, because they're still going to have to take independent action against whatever stockpiles do exist. And now they have the opportunity to essentially take that action covertly. There's a difference between overt conflict and covert conflict. Overt conflict, you have to brag about, everybody sees, there's psychological warfare benefits, right? Well, now that the United States has basically said, hey, this thing is done, there's a ceasefire, it's over. Now if Hezbollah, if Israel goes in, too many bad guys, if Israel goes in and eradicates, sabotages one of these bunkers or these secret sites, or if they go in and they somehow find some way to destroy or dispose of the uranium or even steal the uranium, now they don't have to tell anybody, and neither does Iran. And that's something that can actually be done fully covert because it's in neither party's best interest to make it public. If you recall, when Netanyahu brought to the table the idea of, hey, the United States can drop these bunker busters, he also said, if you don't, we have other options. Well, they still have those other options. So what were those other options they were talking about? It was never defined. Were there other options even about these two sites? Are there other options still going to be exercised even after the bunker busters happened, right? It was coded language, but to your point, I think what we've learned with the exploding pagers and what we've learned with drones being launched inside Iranian borders is that Mossad's capability is one that we don't fully understand and can be quite significant.
Do you think that they've kind of played their ace card too early then?
I don't think they've played their ace card at all.
What is their ace card?
That's what we're all waiting to see. I also don't think Iran has played their ace card. I think that they both are retaining options that might be too frightening for any of us to even consider right now, right? For all we know, there's a dirty bomb on a truck somewhere. For all we know, it's already been delivered. For all we know, North Korea isn't holding the uranium on Iran's behalf, right? We don't have any idea just how nasty this whole thing gets. But what we do know is that the United States' actions have created a sizable narrative that Iran is always going to be pushed down and pushed back by the West. And that was something that I think with the election of, what's their new president? Help me out. The new Iranian president. Is a crazy name.
Yeah.
Pezeshkian or something like that. But with his relatively democratic election, there was a chance for Iran to kind of turn on its own. Well, now there's no incentive for them to do that. Now they can once again kind of say that they're going to be subjected to Big Brother.
So Andrew Bustamante does mention over here that there is risk involved, but at the same time, there's clarity, there's courage, there's a sign that the West is willing to get involved and stand up to evil before it becomes unstoppable. Iran has operated through proxies for a long time, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and while racing toward a nuclear capability. Bustamante points out that Israel and the U.S. acted preemptively, not out of aggression, but to stop a greater threat, to stop something bigger from happening. And that's what peace through strength looks like. According to Bustamante, and something that's pretty widely known at this point, even Arab neighbors like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain, they quietly support a weakened Iran. For the first time in decades, there is an alignment or a realignment in the Middle East. Former enemies are now inching closer to one another. They're trying to find shared values and common cause. That's nothing short of miraculous. We're watching miracles happen right in front of our eyes. Imagine a world where Iran is an isolated regime, not by bombs or not by bombs alone, but by a global consensus of stability, trade, and yes, freedom. Bustamante believes that Israel is playing the long game. They haven't used their ace card yet. And maybe that card is building a coalition between Abrahamic nations that choose life over death and progress over terror. And now the world sees the resolve between the US and Israel. They see that unity, that courage. It's a spark of light in an overall dark time. This isn't World War III. Maybe, just maybe, it's the start of something redemptive. If we keep praying, if we keep standing strong, if we could keep speaking truth, good things are going to come. Let's stay hopeful, let's stay faithful, and let's keep believing in a better future, not just by politics, but by providence. Sometimes peace begins through courage. If you like this content overall, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Take care.